Do you remember the mid-2000s? That rumble of a perfectly tuned engine, the neon glow on wet pavement, and that absolute thrill of outrunning the cops? Man, that was the golden age of street racing games, and there was one name that ruled everything: Need for Speed. It wasn't just a game, it was a cultural phenomenon. But the franchise that once couldn't be stopped is now, somehow, parked indefinitely.
So, what on earth happened? How did a series that literally defined a genre for an entire generation just completely lose its identity, and with it, its audience? Well, that's what we're here to figure out. Let's dive in and piece together the story of this legend's rise and its fall.
Okay, so our story really kicks off in the early 2000s. It was this perfect storm, you know? A massive pop culture shift met a super talented developer, and together they were about to change the racing genre forever. See, before this, Need for Speed was all about these exotic supercars you could never afford on these perfect, scenic highways. But then, the Fast and the Furious hit theaters, and bam! The whole world became obsessed with tuner culture. Suddenly, it was all about these modified Skylines and Supras. And this one studio up in Vancouver, EA Black Box, they saw a huge opportunity. Not just to follow the trend, but to basically own it.
And boy did they seize the moment. Underground completely ditched the Ferraris and gave us cars you might actually see on the street. And for the very first time, you could customize almost everything on your ride. Bumpers, spoilers, finals, you name it. You could create something that felt totally, uniquely yours. The result? It was a cultural reset for racing games and a monster hit that sold over 15 million copies.
And they didn't stop there. Nope. The very next year, they did it all over again, but just bigger. Underground 2 gave us a massive open world called Bayview. You could just drive around, find races, and just soak in the vibe. It felt like a living, breathing world built for street racers.
And then came the masterpiece, Most Wanted. It took the incredible customization and the open world from Underground 2 and brought back the one thing everyone was missing: those epic police chases. With a cool story and that legendary BMW M3 GTR, this was it. This was the moment the series hit its absolute, undeniable peak. And if you need any proof of that peak, just look at this number. Most Wanted sold a staggering 16 million copies. That makes it the best-selling game in the entire history of the franchise. Black Box had perfected their formula, and EA, well, they had a certified cash cow. But that kind of success always comes at a cost.
And this is where our story starts to take a bit of a dark turn. That pressure to catch lightning in a bottle again and again, year after year, it started to take a massive toll. It turned creative passion into what was basically a corporate death march.
I mean, just look at this timeline. A brand new, full-sized racing game every single year for 6 years straight. That's not innovation, that's an assembly line. So while we were all getting our annual fix, the team at EA Black Box was stuck in this brutal, non-stop cycle under insane pressure to deliver another massive hit on an impossible schedule.
And listen, don't just take my word for it. This isn't some rumor from a forum. This is a direct quote from the CEO of EA at the time, John Ricciello. He flat out admitted that the company's insane schedule was absolutely burning out the very same studio that made them all that money. And you can literally see the results of that burnout right here in the review scores. After that incredible high of Most Wanted, the scores just start to slide down. Carbon felt a little rushed, but was still pretty good. But then Pro Street came along with this sudden switch to legal, track-based racing, and it felt like such a weird turn that it just pushed a lot of fans away. The creative exhaustion was really starting to show. Okay, let's just pause here for a sec. We're about to get into the big identity crisis that followed all this burnout. If you're finding this story about the behind-the-scenes of the game industry interesting, do me a huge favor and hit that like button and subscribe. It honestly helps us keep making these explainers for you.
All right, so after the burnout comes the fallout. That death march pretty much killed the Black Box era, and what followed was an entire decade of just utter confusion, where the series had no idea what it wanted to be anymore.
And yeah, identity crisis is honestly the perfect way to describe it. With Black Box basically running on fumes, EA decided to split up development between different studios. The idea was to give the teams more time, but instead of creating one clear vision, it just shattered the franchise's identity.
So think about it from a fan's perspective, right? One year, you get Need for Speed Shift, which is this super serious, realistic track simulator. Then, the very next year, you get Hot Pursuit, which is pure arcade chaos made by the Burnout guys.
Now, both were great games, but they had completely opposite ideas about what Need for Speed should be. You can see why fans were starting to get some serious whiplash.
And then, right in the middle of all that confusion, the end of an era was made official. After a couple more releases, EA Black Box was shut down. For good. The team that had literally defined a generation of racing games was just gone. A casualty of its own incredible success.
So, with Black Box out of the picture, a new studio called Ghost Games gets handed the keys. Their big mission? To recapture that magic from the Golden Age. A goal that, as it turns out, was way, way harder than it looked. And for pretty much the next decade, you started to see the same complaints over and over again. People talked about the weird break-to-drift physics that just never felt right. The always-online thing, which meant you couldn't even pause your single-player game. And oh man, who can forget the most infamous issue? Payback, where your car upgrades were tied to a literal slot machine system. Yikes. And this table just lays the whole problem out perfectly. The 2015 reboot tried to be underground again. Payback tried to be the Fast and the Furious. Heat had that cool day/night idea. Then Unbound went for this crazy new art style. You see the pattern? Every single game was a hard reset, just chasing a different idea instead of building one solid identity.
Which, of course, brings us to today. After all those years of chasing its own ghost, the franchise that was once an unstoppable annual powerhouse has finally just run out of gas.
Yeah, in a move that really didn't surprise anyone who'd been paying attention, EA announced that Need for Speed was being put on hold. Criterion Games, the team that had just made Unbound, was pulled off the series to go help with Battlefield. The undisputed king of the streets was officially benched.
And that really is the question at the heart of all this, isn't it? For more than 10 years, Need for Speed has been haunted by the huge legacy of Underground and Most Wanted. And by trying to be everything to everyone, it somehow ended up losing that core thing that made it so special in the first place. It just leaves you wondering if this racing legend can ever truly find its way back to the front of the pack. I'm curious, what do you all think the future holds for this series? Let us know down in the comments. And that brings us to the end of our explainer. If you enjoyed this deep dive, make sure you like, share, and subscribe for more. It keeps our engine running. Thanks for watching.